What's the creepiest thing you've seen other families do? I worked in a mental health unit and there was this guy probably 18 or 19 who had a really weird relationship with his mother. Like both parents obviously had spoiled this kid rotten, but the mom-son relationship was especially weird. The mother literally sat in the middle of our day hall with her legs like wrapped around her son who was sitting cross-legged in front of her giving him a massage. Both parents were super touchy with the kid. Kissed each other on the lips. I don't think this one is super weird in all contexts, but in the middle of the psych ward it was weird. Hugging and touching constantly. Just bizarre. Had a friend named Kent in 4th grade. His family was messed up. His mom was in prison for trying to kill him and his little sisters by locking them in their house and setting it on fire. Kent saved his sisters' lives but was burnt on 90% of his body. He had masks, special sleeves for his legs and arms. It was horrible for him. Other kids were weirded out by him, but I thought it was so unfair how kids treated him because they didn't understand. But what happened the one night I stayed over at Kent's house will forever be etched in my mind. It was a normal weekend night. We had a Super Nintendo, a large pizza, pogs, and a whole basement to ourselves. We eat, drink, play. Today I learned we pass out. In the middle of the night his little sister comes running down the basement steps crying hysterically and peed herself and is shaking, having a full-blown panic attack. Once I wake up and see Kent is not waking up, I realize upstairs sounds like a bowling alley or a bar fight. I can't get Rose to calm down and Kent won't wake up, so I go searching for an adult. Up the basement steps is the dining room, and as I open the door I see Kent's dad and his new wife covered in blood, cocaine, literally trying to kill each other. Neither really had clothes on. Neither noticed me, and they were out to kill each other. What did I do? Turned around and went back downstairs and sat with his sister until she fell asleep. Woke up the next day and they acted like nothing happened. The house was cleaned up. Both of them looked, well, better than the night before. Served the kids donuts like it was any normal Sunday morning. I told my dad every detail of the story when I got home, and he looked sick when I was done. He went and told the story to several people who ended up finding out Kent's dad was a fairly big-time drug dealer. Kent moved away shortly after that, and I've never heard a thing about him since. I still wonder to this day if him and his sisters are okay. And that's the story of the weirdest stuff I ever saw another family do. Got plenty more stories, but that one bothers me most. Kent probably became a super heavy sleeper as a defense mechanism. I hope he and his sisters are okay. I used to live a few houses down from a home that had no windows. Like it looked like the house had been built that way since the siding was pretty much seamless. Like it didn't look like they had removed the windows and boarded up or anything like that. And the family that lived there, the random times that I did see them, which was super rare, they would come out totally covered in clothes like long shirts and pants and gloves and everything, and always with hats of varying sizes. I ended up finding out that they had a skin disorder where they were basically allergic to light or something like that. So it went from creepy to pretty interesting when I found that out, lol. But before that I avoided that place like it was cursed. Okay, this is my own family, but a pretty weird thing. My family extended included really likes to hang around cemeteries a lot. Bored. Let's go to the cemetery and walk around. On a car trip and need to stretch your legs. Cemetery. We even had picnics in cemeteries. I have a lot of distinct memories of my mom, aunts, and grandparents taking me and my cousins to get McDonald's or pack a PBJ for a cemetery picnic. We'd just spread out a blanket and eat lunch next to literal dead people. We were never disrespectful of the graves or anything. Just imagine going to a funeral and seeing a random family having a picnic there. I didn't realize this was weird until I was talking with my fiance about places we could take our food outside, and I was like, ooh, there's a cemetery over there we could sit down and eat at. And this man gave me the most WTF unsettled face I have ever seen. I thought about it for a minute and came to the conclusion that I might actually be in real life the Dan's family. I used to live up the street from a Mormon family. They were a very nice and mostly normal The only bizarre things were all 4 kids needed to learn a minimum of 6 classical instruments. Mom was a music teacher and I believed played something like 5, and the dad knew another 3, 4 she didn't, and they were very close. I loved living near them though. There was a family when I was a kid who went on vacation and left their 4-year-old and 7-year-old home alone. Sounds like they were hoping to get rid of the 4-year-old and 7-year-old. I grew up in Southwest Florida, off of MLK and Michigan Avenue. An apartment had a Christmas tree up all year round, and no doors on bedrooms or even the bathroom. The girls were only allowed to wear skirts. They looked like dolls. I was 6 at a friend's, and I was terrified. I went to a friend's house for dinner, and they put raisins in their spaghetti sauce. Down the block from me, when I was around 10, was a family with 2 kids. A daughter my age and a brother a few years older. Once during a slumber party, they admitted they practiced kissing, and more on each other, so they'd be good at it later. When they started dating, it was never clear just how far they went with each other. The parents were also a bit weird. Insisted serving us all giant heaping spoonfuls of vitamin powder or else we weren't allowed to eat dinner, and putting milk on cereal would earn a grounding. Only apple juice was allowed, even though milk was otherwise consumed in normal ways in their house. Being grounded sometimes meant being locked in a dark room with the light bulbs removed. There was a really weird family in our neighborhood growing up that just stood in their yard on Sundays. Never moved. You sure they weren't scarecrows? I dated a girl Mandy in high school whose neighbors looked like an average middle-aged married couple. They didn't have kids, but had 2 little dogs they treated like kids. Dressed them up. Took them around town. Talked to them like they were talking to a kid that understood. That kind of stuff. We just figured maybe they couldn't have kids, so no big deal, and kinda felt sorry for them. Other than that, they looked like a very loving married couple. Walked around with hands in each other's back pockets. Always saying I love you. That sort of stuff. Years later I bumped into Mandy, and we talked for a bit. At one point I brought up the neighbors and their dogs, and she got real serious. She found out a couple years after high school that they weren't a married couple. They were brother and sister. I grew up in a religious organization that was questionably cult-like at times. It attracted all kinds of people who would all then live on what we called base. When I was around 12 I remember this one family that would dedicate at least 45 minutes on Sundays jumping to practice for the rapture. I guess it was to get a head start or something. I stayed pretty far away from them cause they were weird overall. I left the organization as soon as I turned 18, but until then was deemed a problem child. A kid I went to school with used to kiss his parents and sisters on the lips. Not like a peck, but like a kiss with passion. They did it in public, so wasn't like I spied them doing something I wasn't supposed to see. Dad included. Really awkward. Dad spending all the money on cars while his kids didn't get proper education. No proper clothing. Their house didn't have a refrigerator, a television, no basic utilities. Used to live next to a very strange family. There was a girl my age who used to peek through the curtains and watch me mow the lawn. I never saw anyone from the house outside except for rare occurrences, and always at night. I didn't know how many people lived there, but the few that I saw were as pale as ghosts. They had a beautiful brick patio with a built-in fire pit built, and only ever burned cardboard boxes and plastic. The patio was never maintained, and got overgrown the same year it was put it. Only time I interacted with them was to repeatedly ask them not to burn plastic in their fire pit. They would wait for a nice cool night to burn their trash, and it was always when I had my windows open. I used to work evenings and get home around 11 p.m. I would drive by that home where other little kids were sitting in a circle listening to a man who seemed to be reading them the Bible. They were all very well dressed, jacket, white shirt. So it was really eerie. I don't have kids, but I know they should have been sleeping hours ago. Haven't thought of this in years, and am shuddering now thinking about it. Guy in high school I played football with was close with his mother to a creepy degree. He had a party at his house one night and his mother was out trying to be the cool mom having drinks with people. At one point he ended up doing a body shot of tequila off his mother. Not sure what happened to that guy. I'm sure he's now living in a house with a headless doll collection and a few guests in the basement. My friend in college. We'll call him Bob. Never talked much about his family. I could tell he had some money, but as a lower class goof, I wasn't really sure how much. All I knew was Bob had 2 flat screen TVs and had this sort of carefree attitude about him, like he never worried too much about anything. One day he asked me to ride with him to pick his family up from the airport. I was worried because the flight was due in 15 minutes and the airport is 45 minutes away. But we didn't drive to the big airport. We drove to the little municipal strip right outside town, where Bob's family's private Gulfstream was taxiing toward us. The family crest emblazoned on the side. Bob's family owned and managed a $56 billion hedge fund. I wondered why Bob drove his F-150 like a sports car, and finally got my answer: he had learned to drive at 16 in a Ferrari. I eventually visited one of their homes, and it was like a museum. Another home was previously owned by a legendary superstar rockstar. Another home was on a Bahamian island. Next to the island was their 185-meter yacht. The creepiest thing about this family was that to this day they were the kindest, nicest, sweetest people I've ever met. The whole family was polite and respectful to one another. The kids really loved their parents and the parents really cherished their own children. To someone like me, a low-class boob with schizophrenic, drug-addled parents who were always poor and gambling, it was too much. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,